Okay, so continuing our conversation of evaluating resources for credibility and appropriateness. I know your discussion board isn't officially due till tomorrow, but looking at the conversation that's already there, a lot of you are listing accuracy as one of the most important parts of the CRAP test. And so I thought I might start with that element of it when we were talking about evaluations. And so wanting to talk today about how sources are used within research, within articles, on how you can present information and use different sources to do different things. And so moving past my funny photo of the day, want to come back to this information literacy framework. So go back to the beginning of the semester, a month ago, where we talked about those frameworks, specifically this scholarship as conversation framework. So this framework talks about how communities of scholars, researchers, etc. engaged in sustained discourse, which is just a fancy way of saying they continue talking, with new insights and discoveries occurring over time. So what this is saying is that scholarship and research and published articles and books and newspaper articles and things is a form of conversation that's going on between different experts and different people who are researching and discovering new ideas. And so this occurs over time as a result of varied perspectives and interpretations of you have an event occur and people are going to start analyzing in different ways and have different thoughts on it, or someone does a study that says this about this topic, while other scholars are going to chime in and start analyzing that in different interpretations. So scholarship that's been published and the things you're using for research and what you're finding in library resources is really a way for experts and researchers to talk to each other through publications. And so going back to the learning objectives for this, for you to use this information literacy framework, you need to recognize that scholarly work may not represent the only or even the majority perspective of the issue at hand. So you want to put information that you're reading and looking at in context of the bigger picture, that this is one tiny puzzle piece of a whole puzzle that could have thousands of pieces. It could be a very important key piece that's in the center that ties everything together, or it could kind of be a weird wonky piece off to the side. And so you need to keep that in mind when you're reading information. You need to understand that students or anyone who's really reading these research papers are entering into the middle of conversation, not at the end. That what has been published is at the center of it. It's coming, that you have information that came before it, that this current publication you're reading is standing upon, and you're going to have publications that continue to use it and either agree with it or disagree with it and explain why and use it in different contexts. So you're really entering in the middle of that scholarly conversation. And someone who correctly uses this information literacy framework will critically evaluate contributions made by others, and as well as seeing yourself as a producer as well as consumer of info. So you need to critically think of how is this information being used, and how should it be used, and how are you contributing to that conversation. So really, like I said, talking about the CRAP test, I'm a big fan of the CRAP test. It's a fun little acronym. Librarians love a pun. Well, this librarian loves a pun. And it does help you as kind of a tool to think through things. As we went over in the video last week, it is not a black and white, hard and fast test of this is good or bad, but it's a way to evaluate the appropriateness of things. And so this one is really, so what we're talking about today really deals with this accuracy level of it, of looking at sources and where information is coming from. Is it correct, and is it being used correctly as well? It's being used correctly is really what we're looking at today. So when you are reading academic research or even more popular research or books or things like that, you get four kind of ways. The sources that are within the research you're reading, so you have this article and they got their information from somewhere else. You got really four ways those sources are going to be used or presented to you. And so that's what we're looking at with today, is with accuracy, not just is it correct, but is it being used properly? So a lot of what evaluation is going to deal with is really this appropriateness and credibility. And so are the sources being presented to you being used correctly? So you got 4 ways sources can be presented to you. And you have this graphic here in this PowerPoint, but I've also uploaded it to the module as a separate file, so it might be easier for you to read. First off, information and sources can be used in an article or book to present background information. So they're going to give you context, facts about what is this topic, what is the background, what is the basic knowledge of that, what has happened prior to this. They might also present authoritative info of here is whatever the authority is on this subject is saying about it. So giving you this background, here's what you need to know before we have the discussion we're presenting in this article. Bottom, kind of moving to the bottom of this, I do feel background and method really tied together very well. Method is another way you can use sources, that you might have sources talking about this is how I'm going to analyze my information. So it's providing definitions of terminology and concepts, explain how you analyze, interpret the data. You see methods sections less frequently within popular resources. You mostly see them within scholarly, academic, peer-reviewed articles, to where the researchers are telling you this is what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. So lots of times they have methods or methodology section explaining we're going to study how fish utilize this specific ingredient in algae to do something else, and they're going to tell you exactly what methods they're going to use to study that. So what tools are they going to use, what theory or concepts. I got a lot of criminal justice majors in this class, so perhaps we're saying we're going to talk about this theory of criminology to discuss this particular subset of a certain population, or my education majors who I have in this class, that I'm going to use this theory of learning, so perhaps cognitive behavior or something like that, to talk about how I'm going to teach and how I'm going to set up this study that I'm doing on these students. And so that is that methodology section of sometimes you have sources that explain what it is you're doing and why you're doing it. And so you have background, like I said, background and method really go together quite well, of you're providing the background knowledge of what it is you need to know before you can fully read the article. For scholarly and academic resources, definitely this method section, talking about how it is you're going to do what you're saying you're going to do, is really what that is. It's giving you that definition, background info of what it is we're doing. Next, you see exhibits, and this is what might come out with a lot of what we call primary resources. And we're going to talk about, I keep on saying these words, scholarly and primary and things, and academic and things like that, and I'm going to talk about that a bit more on Thursday, of what the difference between those is. But exhibits is you're setting something up to be exhibited within the discussion of the article you're presenting, article, book, whatever it is that you're reading, is that they might use sources to say this is what we're going to analyze or interpret. Often includes primary sources. So primary sources are original sources of information. These can be things like works of art, diaries, letters, first-hand account, copies of speeches, to where if someone's made a statement that so-and-so said this sort of deal, that's a primary source. Original sources of information is what a primary source is. You're giving your evidence for it. So it does list evidence here as a type of exhibit. So I'm going to set up that John Smith said this about, this is the way you should teach kindergartners to learn how their math skills kind of deal, and I'm setting that up as an evidence of this is why I'm going to do this and what I'm going to do. Or it could be that I'm providing, I did a study on using this method to teach kindergartners their addition, how to add and do sums, and this is what I'm analyzing is the evidence of that kind of deal. So setting up this exhibit to be interpreted, to be analyzed, to be talked about. That's a big type of source that you're going to see in a lot of research and a lot of papers, both academic and popular and more kind of informal things. And then finally, you get sources that are going to be argumentative. And this might not be argument in a bad way, but is going to show the pre-existing conversation or discourse. So what have other people said before we got to our point that I'm trying to make now? This is where you as an author and as the researcher and person doing this study or whoever it is you're reading that did this study or paper is going to engage those earlier conversations. So they're either going to refute them and disagree with it. You're going to kind of refine it and clarify and explain it further, extend or build upon it, or affirm them. So you kind of, here's the argument someone's setting up, and this is what I'm going to do with it, is kind of these type of sources. This often includes secondary sources. So whereas exhibits is what the original source of the information I'm going to analyze, this is what other people are saying about it or what the author of the paper or book that you're reading is going to say about it. So you get these kind of 4 different ways that sources can be used. And this is really what we're going to be looking at with your assignment for today, is you're going to be looking at an article I give you, and you're going to tell me whether or not a source within it is being used as background, exhibit, argument, or method section within it. And so coming back to that. But how do you find sources in an article? If it's scholarly and has a works cited, it's really easy. You're looking at the works cited, references, footnotes, endnotes, bibliography, those in-text citations. That's a really easy way to find sources if you're looking at that type of resource that's going to have those. So cited references will correspond with the in-text citation. So you're seeing a quote and you get that in-text citation. Oops. You're getting your paraphrase and it's telling you which thing it goes from. So you're looking at the works cited at the end, corresponds with that in-text. You get the footnote, endnote, to where you're getting this little superscript 1, or it might be an A or B or something like that, to where instead of a parenthetical in text, it's corresponding to that. And so you'd either look at the bottom of the page or the bottom of the entire article to see, okay, what was the full citation for who that came from. When you're looking at more informal articles, things that are coming out of magazines, newspapers that aren't scholarly and having these works cited, you're not going to see cited references, but most of them are going to have in-text sources. Credible people tell you where their information came from. If they're giving you a fact, they're telling you where they got this. And so I'm going to show you some examples of a lot of ways to find that, but what you're looking for is signal phrases. According to, so-and-so said, in this study kind of deal. So it's telling you with those signal phrases of where the information came from, and they're typically giving you a name or an organization or book or something where it was published that they're referencing within the text. So look for those in-text sources is kind of what I call them. All right, so you're going to have an assignment with this to where that conversational nature of sources activity, to where you're going to read the article that you choose from within it. I'm giving you 2 examples. You're going to follow the directions and then turn it in on Canvas. But before we get to that, I kind of want to show you some live examples of ways you can find this information. So like I said, with looking at sources and looking at actual articles, looking at this one, making it a little bit bigger so we can see. So this is a scholarly article written by someone who works for Western Michigan University about calcium and this Fenton chemistry. No idea what it's talking about. But within this, you're seeing within it, you're getting these footnote and text citations that are going to correspond to, if you scroll down all the way to the bottom, their references. So you're getting these exact examples of where they're getting their information. So this is the sources that's being used in this article you're reading on calcium and Fenton chemistry. And so this is where, if you were analyzing the sources and wanting to look at accuracy, well, is the research being presented to you in this article by Northup and Cassidy actually accurate? Is it credible? Is it being used appropriately? You want to kind of look at where are they getting their info. So look at these sources and what are they citing, and how, not only what are they citing, but start then thinking, how are they using it? Are they using it appropriately within the article? So when you're looking at these scholarly type papers that have citations, it's really easy to see where information comes from. Students get more confused when it's a little bit more casual. Now, if you're looking at electronic articles on the internet, it's become very common to hyperlink to sources. So I was reading this article earlier today on Goodreads. I don't know if any of y'all are familiar with Goodreads. It was a social media site that really was popular in the early 2010s for keeping up with what you're reading and for finding new recommendations for it. And so this article is really talking about how this has kind of has its heyday and it's gone kaput. It's going kaput. But you're seeing within it, you're getting these hyperlinks to other resources. So you're seeing with this sentence that the creators of Goodreads, this Otis and Elizabeth Chandler, say they originally launched a platform in 2017 to get recommendations from their literary friends. So you're getting this kind of in-text lead, that signal phrase of Chandler say blah, 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 but they're also linking and they're hyperlinking to where they're getting that information from. So that quote and that piece of info actually came from this article in The Atlantic and is kind of paraphrasing that. So they're connecting you to other sources within it. Another example, so later that year, Goodreads was bought by Amazon. Wired magazine kind of called that acquisition quaint. And so you're getting, once again, connecting out to that specific article of where they're getting that information. So you're getting the signal phrase, so-and-so said this happened by someone, but then it's being connecting it with hyperlinks to other electronic articles. And so that's a really easy way if you're looking at these online magazines, online news sources, to connect to resources. It's becoming very common to connect to that. Not everything can always be hyperlinked though. So if the author couldn't find the original source, they might just say so-and-so said this and tell you when they said it, but they're not going to they're not going to be able to hyperlink it. This gets more confusing though if you're looking at popular, less formal research and information coming out of library databases. So you have this magazine called Psychology Today. It's a pretty easy resource to look at for getting kind of educational. It's kind of on the level of National Geographic, that it's not quite scholarly academic research. It's written more for everyday person to be able to pick it up, but it is educational. But talking about the milk and kind of being used within it, you're not getting those hypertext links. So you really do need to read to look at where this information is coming from. So, for example, Michael Zimmer, director of the Nutrition Institute at the University of Tennessee, he was skeptical when a group of people who treated for high blood sugar with calcium supplements also wound up losing 11 pounds. So you're getting this kind of, who is this person saying this? What are they presenting as the information? And so look for those signal phrases within there. And from then on, so you can see Zimmel is quoted quite a bit again. But then, so this few paragraphs down, you're seeing Stuart M. Phillips, who's from Canada's McMaster University, found that fat-free milk boosts the ability of exercise training to build muscle and stuff like that. So they're not giving you citations, but they're giving you those signal phrases of this is where this information came from and who is saying it, and lots of times they're giving you the credentials of who is saying it. So Stuart Phillips works for McMaster University. Zimmel is the director of the Nutrition Institute at the University of Tennessee. And so they're telling you why is it we're taking this information from this person and why you want to listen to them. Within this, so hopefully that kind of explains how you look at these. What you're doing with the activity for today is you're going to take one source out of the articles that I gave you. So you're picking not the entire article, you're going to pick one thing that's quoted within one of the articles, and you're going to look at, is it being used as background, exhibit, argumentative, or method? And so for like some of these examples that you're seeing this background, this source that Otis and Chandler say they initially launched the platform in 2007. Well, that's a source that's being used in this article. That, to me, would be background. It's providing you the background of how Goodreads as a platform came to be, why was it created, so it's giving you kind of that background information. If you scroll down further, you have this other one, this proposal for a decentralized Goodreads. This person, Tom Critchlow, who's an independent strategy consultant from the UK, he created kind of a challenging platform called 7 Books, which is kind of like a competitor for Goodreads. So the author of this article about Goodreads itself is using Critchlow's article, A Proposal for Decentralized Goodreads, as an exhibit to be analyzed. So he's setting this up of this person created this article and made these statements in it, and then the author of this article that you're reading on the screen is kind of analyzing that, and he's using it to further his argument that Goodreads really is falling apart, and this is why, and sort of deal. So that's where you're then looking at this as an exhibit to be analyzed. So I'm hoping that helps you make sense of what you're supposed to do with the assignment. But if you have any questions about it, do let me know. So you're going to watch your videos and then complete that conversational nature of sources activity.